International Auction Gala. Guests in tuxedos and evening gowns. David Cole, 34, single dad in a rented vest, leads his daughter Lila, 8, accidentally sitting near the VIP table. Klara Eisenberg, 26, young German heiress in a red evening dress, wearing a silver necklace. Klara leans over, speaking German to her friend. "Look at him, poor man. Doesn't belong here. Maybe he borrowed his suit." Mocking giggles spread around the table. David stays calm, eyes on his auction catalog. Then he looks up, speaking fluent German. "I understand every word you said." The crystal glass in Clara's hand drops to the floor, shattering. The entire table freezes. David Cole repairs cars by day and drives night shifts to make ends meet. At 34, he's mastered the delicate balance of single fatherhood while keeping their small apartment above the garage workshop. 3 years ago, when his German wife Anna died from cancer, she left behind more than grief. She left him a worn leather notebook filled with German vocabulary, grammar notes, and love letters written in 2 languages. "Promise me you'll teach Lila both worlds," Anna had whispered during her final days, "so she knows where she comes from." David kept that promise. Every evening, he and 8-year-old Lila practiced German using Anna's notebook, turning language lessons into games and bedtime stories. Lila doesn't remember much of her mother's accent, but she treasures the connection to a heritage that lives on in careful pronunciation and handwritten notes. This morning, while walking to the auction venue, Lila spotted something glinting near the entrance gate. An old German coin, weathered but still readable. She picked it up with the excitement only children possess for unexpected treasures. "It's my lucky coin, Daddy," she announced, clutching it tight. "Mama would say it's a good sign." The invitation to tonight's charity auction came through David's employer, whose auto shop services several luxury car dealerships. "Take your daughter," his boss had said. "Kids should see how the other half lives." Klara Eisenberg represents everything David's world doesn't typically intersect with. At 26, she's inherited not just wealth, but the casual confidence that comes from never questioning whether you belong somewhere. Tonight's auction supports children's education, a cause her family foundation has championed for decades. Around her neck, she wears a silver necklace that belonged to her grandmother, engraved with what she believes is a Goethe quote about nobility and character. The necklace has become her signature piece, worn to every formal event as a reminder of her family's intellectual tradition. But Clara's privilege has created blind spots. She's accustomed to speaking German freely at international events, assuming most people around her don't understand. It's become a habit, almost a private language she shares with fellow German speakers to comment on their surroundings without filter. The humiliation begins the moment David and Lila find their assigned table. "Excuse me," a server approaches with polite skepticism. "Are you certain this is your seating section?" David shows their invitation, but the server's expression suggests doubt. Around them, other guests wear designer evening wear that costs more than David's monthly rent. His rented vest, though clean and properly fitted, marks him as clearly as a name tag would. "Single dad trying to play rich," someone whispers behind them, just loud enough to be heard. Lila, unaware of the social dynamics at play, is fascinated by the elegant setting. When she notices Clara's intricate silver necklace, her curiosity overcomes shyness. "Your necklace is beautiful," Lila says in careful English. "What does the writing mean?" Klara glances at the child with mild amusement, then turns to her companion and responds in rapid German. "Even if I told her, she wouldn't understand such things. These people don't appreciate true culture." The dismissal is casual, almost thoughtless, the kind of automatic superiority that comes from a lifetime of assumed privilege. But Klara doesn't notice Lila's face fall, or the way the little girl's fingers tighten around her lucky coin. David sees everything. His wife's notebook has taught him more than vocabulary. It's taught him to recognize when language becomes a weapon instead of a bridge. Anna used to say that speaking someone's language was the first step towards seeing their heart. Tonight, David realizes he's about to teach that lesson in reverse. As the auction program begins and cameras start rolling for the charity's live stream, David remains calm, his fingers tracing the edge of Anna's leather notebook. Soon, assumptions about language, class, and belonging are about to collide in ways no one expects. If someone mocked you in a language they thought you couldn't understand, would you stay silent or speak up? Comment below and subscribe for what happened next. The auction begins with polite applause and the gentle clink of champagne glasses. But the real entertainment for some guests seems to be the incongruous presence of David and Lila at their table. The live stream cameras capture the elegant crowd, occasionally panning across faces that represent old money and new power. A distinguished German gentleman at the neighboring table leans toward his companions, speaking loud enough for his voice to carry. Perhaps he's here to bid on the charity's leftover items. Surely nothing more ambitious than that. The comment draws knowing chuckles from others who assume David can't understand. The live stream chat begins filling with speculation. Who let the mechanic into the VIP section? Single dad cosplaying as millionaire. This is awkward to watch. But Klara escalates the humiliation, emboldened by the crowd's reaction and her assumption of linguistic privacy. She turns to her tablemates, speaking in rapid, confident German. Let's see how long he lasts before security discreetly asks him to move to more appropriate seating. These charity events sometimes attract people who don't understand boundaries. Her friends laugh, one adding in German, "At least his daughter is well behaved. Pity about the father's delusions of grandeur." David remains perfectly still, his hand resting on Anna's leather notebook. Inside, he can feel the weight of hundreds of vocabulary cards, grammar exercises, and love notes written in the language his wife used to whisper to Lila during bedtime stories. Every cruel word lands with precision because he understands not just the literal meaning, but the cultural context behind the condescension. Lila notices the laughter, but doesn't understand its source. She looks up at her father with questioning eyes, clutching her lucky German coin tighter. That's when David makes his move. He places Anna's leather notebook deliberately on the table, its worn cover catching the light. Then he looks directly at Klara and responds in flawless, educated German. "You mistake money for class. True class is how you treat people when you think no one is watching." The effect is immediate and electric. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Crystal glasses pause halfway to lips. Even the servers seem to freeze in place. Spricht Deutsch? Someone gasps. He speaks German. The live stream cameras capture Klara's face as it flushes deep red, her confident smile vanishing completely. Her hand tightens around her crystal glass until her knuckles go white. But the revelation creates a new dynamic. A reporter covering the charity event for social media approaches their table, drawn by the obvious tension and the sudden shift in atmosphere. "Excuse me," the reporter says, phone already recording. "I couldn't help but notice the interesting conversation. Could you tell our viewers who you are?" Klara attempts damage control, switching to English. Anyone can memorize a few phrases. It doesn't mean they understand the culture behind the language. Her defensive response only draws more attention. Other guests lean in, sensing drama. David's counter is quiet but devastating. He points to Klara's silver necklace, speaking clearly enough for the reporter's microphone to catch every word. "Das ist kein Zitat aus Goethe, sondern von Heine. Ein Fehler, den jemand mit echter Bildung nicht machen würde." The translation ripples through the German speakers at nearby tables. That's not a quote from Goethe, but from Heine, a mistake someone with real education wouldn't make. The correction hits like a thunderbolt. Klara has been wearing and quoting the necklace incorrectly for years, attributing Heinrich Heine's words to Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, a mistake that reveals the superficial nature of her assumed cultural superiority. The crowd murmurs with new interest. Several German speakers nod in recognition of David's correction, while others pull out phones to verify the quote's attribution. "Impossible," one of Klara's friends whispers in German, but her voice lacks conviction. The reporter, sensing a viral moment, continues filming as Klara struggles to respond. Her face moves through a spectrum of emotions: embarrassment, anger, disbelief, and something that might be growing respect. David doesn't gloat. Instead, he gently opens Anna's leather notebook to a page filled with handwritten notes about German literature and philosophy. The camera catches glimpses of detailed annotations, cultural observations, and what appears to be years of serious study. My wife was Anna Weber before she became Anna Cole, he says quietly, the German surname carrying weight that several guests immediately recognize. She taught language at the Berlin International School before we moved here. This notebook contains everything she wanted Lila to know about her heritage. The revelation transforms the entire dynamic. The Weber family name is known in German educational circles. Respected teachers and scholars who believed in making classical literature accessible to everyone, not just the elite. Klara stares at the notebook, then at David, then at Lila, who's been watching the adult drama with the keen observation skills children possess when they sense something important happening. Your wife, Klara says slowly, switching to careful English. Anna Weber. I may have known of her work. The auction continues around them, but their table has become an island of tension and revelation. The live stream has captured a moment that's about more than language skills. It's about assumptions, dignity, and the difference between inherited privilege and earned respect. As the evening progresses, it becomes clear that David's linguistic revelation is just the beginning. The leather notebook holds more than vocabulary lessons, and the connections between these families run deeper than anyone at the table yet realizes. The auction reaches its centerpiece moment when the auctioneer presents a small but exquisite painting, a landscape of the German countryside with delicate brushwork that speaks of both skill and deep emotional connection to the subject. Ladies and gentlemen, we present Heimat am Rhein, Homeland on the Rhine, created by Anna Weber in 2018. This was her final completed work before her passing. David's breath catches. The room seems to shift around him as he stares at his wife's painting, displayed under bright lights for hundreds of strangers to evaluate and bid upon. He had no idea it would be here tonight. The auctioneer continues. Proceeds will benefit the International Language Education Foundation. We'll start the bidding at $50,000. Several hands raise immediately. David sits frozen, watching wealthy strangers treat his wife's final creative expression as a commodity. Then, without fully planning it, he raises his paddle. The crowd erupts in surprised murmurs and outright laughter. The live stream chat explodes. The mechanic thinks he can bid millions? This is getting embarrassing. Someone stop this before he humiliates himself. But David continues bidding, paddle steady despite his modest bank account. 100,000, 150, 200,000. The other bidders begin to drop out, confused by his persistence. That's when the first twist hits. Excuse me, the auctioneer calls for attention. Before we continue, I must share some background about this piece. Heimat am Rhein was donated tonight by the artist's widower and daughter, who wished to support language education in her memory. The revelation lands like lightning. David isn't trying to buy the painting. He owns it. He's been donating his wife's final masterpiece to charity, and the wealthy crowd has been mocking a man giving away his most precious possession. Klara's crystal glass slips from her suddenly nerveless fingers, shattering against the floor in the dead silence that follows. The sound echoes through the auction hall like a gunshot, but the second twist is even more devastating. David reaches into his jacket and pulls out the old German coin that Lila found earlier. Under the auction house's bright lights, its markings become clearly visible. He places it on the table where everyone can see the distinctive seal pressed into the metal, a family crest that several people in the room immediately recognize. This coin bears the Weber family crest, David says quietly, his voice carrying in the hushed room. My wife's family, the same seal that appears as a watermark in the corner of her painting. He looks directly at Klara, then at the German investors who had mocked him earlier. Anna Weber wasn't just a language teacher. The Weber family has been preserving German cultural heritage for generations. Anna's great-grandfather helped establish the first international German language programs. Her work built bridges between cultures, exactly what tonight's charity supports. The room processes this information with growing awareness of how badly they've misjudged the situation. But David isn't finished. He opens Anna's leather notebook to a specific page and reads aloud. Heinrich Heine wrote, "Where they burn books, they will in the end burn human beings too." Anna copied this quote because she believed that preserving language and culture was a form of resistance against ignorance. His eyes find Klara's necklace again. That's the actual quote engraved on your necklace. Not about nobility or class, but about the importance of education and cultural preservation. The same work Anna dedicated her life to. The macro spike continues as more connections emerge. A German cultural attaché in the audience stands up, recognition dawning on his face. Anna Weber. I knew her work. She developed the curriculum that my daughter's school uses. We've been trying to locate her family to invite them to our Heritage Festival. Another voice calls out, the Weber Cultural Trust. They funded my scholarship to study in Berlin. The room fills with similar testimonials as people realize they're in the presence of a cultural legacy they never recognized. The live stream chat completely reverses, this man is preserving his wife's legacy. We were wrong about everything. True class doesn't need designer clothes, but the deepest twist comes when Klara finally finds her voice. Anna Weber, she whispers, her hand moving unconsciously to her silver necklace. How old would she have been? When did she teach in Berlin? David checks the dates in his notebook. She taught at Berlin International from 2010 to 2015 before we moved here. Klara's face goes completely white. With trembling fingers, she unfastens her necklace and examines the inscription more carefully under the light. Hidden in the delicate engraving, almost too small to see, are initials that make her gasp. A.W. Anna Weber, she breathes. She was my teacher at Berlin International. She gave me this necklace when I graduated. The connection hits the room like a physical force. The heiress who had mocked David for not understanding culture had been wearing a gift from his wife, a woman who had taught her the very cultural literacy she'd been using as a weapon against others. She told me it would remind me that true education creates bridges, not walls, Klara continues, tears now flowing freely. She said the quote was about protecting knowledge and respecting all learners, regardless of their background. Lila, who has been quietly observing the adult drama, suddenly speaks up. You knew Mama? Klara kneels beside the little girl, still clutching the necklace. Your mama was the kindest teacher I ever had. She never made anyone feel stupid for asking questions. She said every student had something valuable to teach her too. The painting on the auction stage seems to glow under the lights as the room fills with a reverent silence. Anna's final work has done exactly what she intended. It's brought people together across cultural and class boundaries, forcing them to examine their assumptions about worth and belonging. David looks at his wife's painting, then at Klara holding the necklace Anna had given her, then at Lila, who's been the innocent catalyst for this entire revelation. Anna always said that language learning was really about learning to see the world through someone else's eyes, he says softly. Tonight, I think she's still teaching that lesson. The auction hall transforms into something resembling a memorial service as people share their connections to Anna's work. The German cultural attaché approaches David with business cards from 3 different heritage organizations. A young woman reveals that Anna's curriculum helped her transition from refugee to university student. An elderly professor mentions using Anna's textbooks in Berlin. Your wife changed lives, the attaché tells David. The Weber Cultural Trust has been looking for her family to honor her contributions properly. But Klara remains kneeling beside Lila, both of them focused on the silver necklace that has become the evening's most significant artifact. Tell me about Mama, Lila says, her 8-year-old directness cutting through adult complexity. Klara's voice wavers as she speaks. Your mama never made me feel stupid, even when I made mistakes. She said that every error was a stepping stone to understanding. When I graduated, she told me that speaking someone's language meant you were trying to reach their heart. She pauses, looking at David with new understanding. She also said that the most beautiful thing about language was when people chose to build bridges instead of walls with their words. The irony hangs heavy in the air. Klara had spent the evening using language as a weapon until she discovered it connected her to the very person she was attacking. But the most profound twist is yet to come. As the auction concludes and Heimat am Rhein officially transfers to the Charity for Educational Programs, David begins gathering his things. Anna's leather notebook falls open to a page near the back, revealing something that stops Klara cold. It's a photo tucked between the pages. Anna standing with a group of students at Berlin International School. Klara is clearly visible in the front row, young and serious, already wearing the silver necklace. But there's more. Written in Anna's handwriting beneath the photo, "My brightest students often need to learn that intelligence without kindness is just sophisticated cruelty. KE has such potential. I hope she learns to use her gifts to lift others up." Klara reads the note, and something inside her breaks completely. Anna had seen her potential even when she was already displaying the exact arrogance that led to tonight's humiliation. "She believed in me," Klara whispers, "even when I was already becoming everything she taught against." David studies the photo, recognizing his wife's careful optimism about her students. Anna never gave up on anyone. She used to say that sometimes people need time to grow into the kindness they're capable of. The realization dawns on everyone present. Anna had taught Klara about cultural respect and intellectual humility, but Klara had forgotten those lessons as wealth and privilege insulated her from consequences. Tonight's encounter was essentially Anna's curriculum coming full circle. A master class in empathy delivered posthumously. The livestream audience, which had begun the evening mocking David, now watches a real-time lesson about assumptions, privilege, and the power of education to transform lives across generations. "I want to make this right," Klara says, standing and addressing the room. "The Eisenberg Foundation will establish the Anna Weber Memorial Language Program. Full scholarships for immigrant families, refugee children, anyone who wants to build bridges through communication." She turns to David and Lila. "And I want you both to help design it. Anna's teaching philosophy should guide everything we do." The crowd applauds, but David's response is characteristically measured. Anna would want the program to be accessible to everyone, not just a charity case that makes wealthy people feel better about themselves. Sortsim, his words challenge even this gesture of goodwill, forcing Klara to examine her motivations more deeply. "You're right," she admits. "This isn't about me redeeming myself. It's about continuing work that was already important before I understood its value." The evening's final revelation comes when Lila, who has been examining the old German coin throughout the conversations, makes a connection that the adults missed. "The picture on the coin," she says, holding it up to the light. "It looks like the place in Mama's painting." David and Klara lean in to examine both items. The coin, dating from the early 1900s, shows the same Rhine River Valley landscape that Anna painted in her final work. The connection spans over a century, from the Weber family's ancestral homeland to Anna's artistic tribute to her heritage. "Your mama painted home," Klara says softly. "Even after moving so far away, she carried it with her." The realization adds another layer to Anna's legacy. She hadn't just taught language and culture, she had maintained connections across oceans and generations, creating continuity between past and future. As the evening winds down, Klara carefully fastens the silver necklace around Lila's neck instead of her own. "This belongs with Anna's family," she says. "Your mama gave it to me when I needed to learn about respect. Now you can wear it as a reminder of everything she taught us both." Lila touches the necklace gently, then looks up at Klara with the matter-of-fact wisdom only children possess. "Mama always said gifts are supposed to travel to where they're needed most." The comment captures the evening's transformation perfectly. Anna's gifts, her teaching, her necklace, her final painting, even her husband's quiet dignity, have all found their way to exactly where they were needed, bridging gaps that seemed unbridgeable just hours earlier. David closes Anna's leather notebook, knowing that its most important lesson has just been delivered to a room full of people who will carry it forward in ways Anna never could have imagined. 1 month later, the Berlin Museum of Cultural Heritage hosts a special exhibition, Bridges and Words, the Anna Weber Legacy. The opening ceremony draws educators, diplomats, and families from across Germany and beyond. David and Lila stand before Anna's final painting, now permanently displayed with a plaque reading, "In memory of Anna Weber, teacher, bridge builder, mother." Her words continue to connect hearts across cultures. Klara approaches, no longer wearing designer evening wear, but simple, respectful attire. In her hands, she carries a leather-bound book, the first Anna Weber Memorial Scholarship Recipient Handbook. "We've received over 2,000 applications," she tells David quietly, refugee families, immigrant children, anyone who wants to learn languages to build connections instead of walls. She kneels beside Lila, who now wears the silver necklace daily. Your mama's program helped a little boy from Syria learn German so he could make friends at school. And a grandmother from Poland is teaching her neighbors her recipes in 3 languages. Lila smiles, touching the necklace. Mama would like that. The ceremony includes something unprecedented. Klara publicly apologizes for her behavior at the auction, using it as a teaching moment about privilege, assumptions, and the importance of cultural humility. I wore Anna's necklace for years without understanding its true meaning, she tells the assembled crowd. I used language as a weapon instead of a bridge. Anna's greatest lesson wasn't about grammar or vocabulary. It was about approaching every person with respect and curiosity instead of judgment. She gestures toward David and Lila. This family taught me that dignity has no accent. Wisdom needs no designer clothes, and the most profound conversations often happen when we stop talking and start listening. After the ceremony, in a quiet moment away from cameras and crowds, Klara returns something to David. Anna's old leather notebook, now preserved and displayed in the museum's collection. The museum wants visitors to see her actual teaching notes, Klara explains. But this page belongs with you. She shows him the final entry in Anna's handwriting. Language is love made visible. When we speak to someone in their own tongue, we're saying, I see you, I value you, you matter. David reads the words aloud, his voice steady but emotional. She lived that every day. Lila holds up her lucky German coin, now polished and strung on a chain beside the silver necklace. 2 treasures, she announces. One for remembering where we came from, one for remembering where we're going. The 3 of them stand together before Anna's painting. Proof that sometimes the most important lessons travel through generations, waiting for exactly the right moment to change hearts and build bridges that seemed impossible to construct. If you believe respect speaks louder than language, subscribe and share the time words changed how you saw someone.